Yo, what's going on, Game Looper? This is Eggs, and today we're going to be watching a Darius player. This is in gold plat elo, and this guy goes like 1 in 7, I think. So we're going to figure out what this guy does that is just so horrifically bad. Maybe not horrifically bad, but yeah, that he needs to improve on. And this will be relevant for pretty much everyone, well, hopefully everyone watching this video. So let's get into it. So the first thing I just want to point out, guys, in this game, this Darius taking D shield against a GP is totally fine. But one thing here, like this Darius is definitely stronger than Gangplank at level 1, if he can get into melee range, okay? So like even before the minions spawn, I gave this tip for a set VOD. Hanging around like your tri-brush like this is fine if you're weaker than the enemy top laner. But because Darius is so strong, especially because of the buff this patch, where your W's on like a 5-second cooldown, he's even got his W first. If he was to run into GP, right, and get in melee range, okay, it's really good. So getting in the furthest lane brush, so if you're top lane, it's going to be the third brush, yeah, closest to GP, or you can even just run into that river brush. So run through your tri-brush, run into the river brush, and try to fight the enemy top laner if you're stronger. Darius, I don't really know if he actually loses a 1v1 at level 1, but again, like this is an advantage you have to use even before the minions spawn. So you see, yes, it's pretty cleanly there. The Darius, how he's like auto-attacking and then Wing, which is really important. So using your W to last hit minions, okay? It's also an auto-attack reset, which is essential to remember. So that was pretty clean. He probably could have maybe like run to the top left of the lane into one of these brushes instead of straight back. But that was fine. That was good. Now, in these situations as well, guys, you can see like how the Darius is kind of getting like bullied a little bit just because he wasn't in lane like early to fight the Gangplank, which is fine. In these situations, though, it's all about preserving your HP. Now, if you're standing like visible to the enemy champion here, so GP can obviously see Darius, right? One tip is just to use these brushes as well as you can, because if GP doesn't water brush here, Darius can like potentially pull him in, W him, and use his ghost and just chase him down, right? But because he's standing in the open, GP knows exactly where he is and there's no real threat here. So using these brushes when the wave is pushing into you like it is a really good idea just to like stay in a kind of safe position while getting experience still. Yeah, because where he's standing right now, it's a little risky. Thankfully, though, this is a really good pull, like a really good pull. That was like max range, perfect, and he did it as the GP is using his Q. So this is another tip, guys, as well. So good job by this Darius. If the enemy champion is using like an auto attack or an ability, you have to remember that they're probably going to be channeling this ability or auto attack. So in other words, they're just standing still. So for like half a second, maybe a second sometimes, depending on the ability, you have a good amount of time to pull them in and to catch them out, which is exactly what Darius does here. So really, when GP shapes up to Q you, for this matchup in particular, when he shapes up to Q you, and his character is looking at yours, you know he's clicking on your head ready to Q. So in these situations, instead of running away, you can actually just run towards the enemy champion. Even though you're going to take damage, you're doing it so you land your apprehend when they are in that ability, okay? When they're in that channel, which is exactly what happens here, which is really good. He auto attacks and then he Ws, which is perfect. Now, hopefully he just chases this guy down. Now, it's a little risky, actually, just because of the minion wave. Yeah, probably not. Forgot the wave was as big as this. But that right there in like another situation, even at level 1, you can do this, like even without your E, like manipulating the brushes and using the brushes and then like chasing GP down with Ghost. So again, in this lane, like if this was to restart, I would just, if I was coaching this Darius, I'd just tell him to run through the top lane brushes to the furthest one. If GP's in that, you might get his flash and you can hunt him down. Yeah, remember your W is going to slow them. Or just run through into the river brush. Here's why I don't really like it, how Darius is, again, like just hitting the cannon. It's really like not the worst thing in the world, but I'd much rather him hold that top lane brush just to like kind of hold on to it, because it is like a strong point in the lane. So if you can hold on to one of these like furthest lane brushes, so the first or third ones, it's just really good. It's just really good because it gives you more opportunities to actually fight this GP like on your terms, rather than him just like, you know, poking you out of lane with his Q like all day. So even there, potentially, Darius can run into him and just cop a Q. The reason he wouldn't is just because of the level difference, okay? So, but before, when they were level 2, he did it, right? Because they're the same level. So I just say, like, if you are a level down and the enemy champion has a big-ass minion wave, be careful doing it. But even here, like, it might be okay because you have, like, even though GP does have more minions, if you see, like, if GP was to Q Darius from where he is right now and Darius pulls him in, he's actually going to cop a little bit of aggro from these ranged minions. And I think Darius would, like, hard win. okay? So always consider your minions and then the levels, and of course like the HP difference. If you're like on 200 HP here, you don't want to really go for any trades. You just want to let the wave come into you and chill. Again, guys, here you can see the amount of damage Darius just took from the minions. Let the wave push into your tower, please. You have to remember the range minions, cannon minions are going to hit the first thing, or like just the closest thing to them. So if you're standing in front of your tower, so if I draw a line from pretty much like just in front of the tower, just straight down to this wall, right? If you stand in front of that, those minions are going to lock onto you and not the tower. So wait until they get onto your tower first and your tower has all that aggro, then go after the minions. This is like 100 HP that he loses just from this. Actually, more than that. It might even be like 150, 200 HP. It's ridiculous. And you can see here, if the enemy jungler was top, they could easily dive this guy. Okay, so it's very important to manage your HP in terms of like the minion wave. Okay, so if it's pushing into you, you do not want to lose more HP than you have to because you will get dove, especially in higher reloads. Now you see here as well, guys, how this Shaco is annoying the Shyvana. I don't even know what's happening over there, and to be honest, I couldn't care less. The most important thing for Darius in this situation, and for anyone in this situation, when you're not losing lane, but you're copping it a little bit, you know, you're behind in XP, GP is level 4, you're level 3, and you don't have that much HP. Going to this fight, okay, which Shyvana is probably losing because she's getting pushed out of her jungle, what is actually going to come of it? Anything good? No, right? So instead of saving your teammate here, you have guaranteed golden experience in the minion wave, and so many people in low elo will do what this Darius does. Just face checks a brush where GP is with a barrel. So if GP was maybe quicker, or if he had like an E available, he can hit the Darius and he loses more HP. And just look, he loses like 3 range minions here, another melee, and for what? Just to check a brush? So if your jungler is copying it, yeah? And you know you can't get there, especially when you're losing lane yourself, do not go there. There is no point in going there. Here it's very risky to trade with this GP just because Shaco is nearby. So Darius here as well has to land the outer Q. When you Q on Darius, guys, the most important thing is hitting the outer part of it. So I would even say here in this combo, if we watch this again, your E, okay, so if you understand your E, it pulls them in, right? But as you pull them in, it's like they'll bounce off you. And when they bounce off you, okay, they're going to be on the outer part of your Q, which is perfect. That's exactly what you want. The outer part of your Q will deal more damage, okay? And it will also heal you. But if you hit them with the handle of your axe, it's going to do a lot less damage and it won't heal you for anything, okay? So let's watch this again. So Darius is going to go for an apprehend here, which is really good. Auto attacks and W's, perfect. So he's using that auto attack reset. But why not Q here when the gangplank's slowed? Look at him, he's slowed. Now he's got all his mobility and Darius misses his Q because of it. So this is just simple comboing. So auto attacking, or sorry, the E, so leading with the E, which is perfect, then the auto attack, then the W. Awesome. They're slowed because of the W. Why not Q them at that point? So that should have been the combo here. Instead, he's waited until GP has like full mobility and all his movement speed, so he ends up missing the Q as well. So this is honestly why he dies. I think he would have survived that even if Shaco is there. But yeah, like a few things that this guy hasn't really done in the early levels that I'd love to see him do. Yeah, let's keep watching. So when Darius is back in lane here, guys, against Gangplank, this GP has already used his corrupting potion, and he was actually losing like 200 HP before because he tried like holding up the minion wave. But for some reason, this Darius, I know like he's kind of scared the Shaco is here. But again, what was the tip I gave you? Instead of standing in the middle of the lane where GP can see you, where can you stand to exert pressure? In one of these top brushes, right? If GP puts a ward down in that brush where you are, guess what? He doesn't have a ward for your jungler. He doesn't have a ward for somewhere else. Maybe your mid laner comes to roam. Maybe your support in higher reloads comes to roam top, yeah? So it's all good. That's the optimal play here, just to hold these brushes and to run out when you have CS, or if GP overextends and you can catch him out with your E. Standing here, like, what is the point of standing in the middle of the lane where everyone can see you, yeah? There's no real point to it. And Darius at this point as well, like, okay, GP has a sheen, but it's not like he's behind, like, 1,500 gold, 2,000 gold, right? So fighting the GP is completely doable here. But for some reason, this guy is just so scared and just plays in vision the entire time. Using these brushes, especially as a melee champion into a range matchup, is so important because you're going to preserve as much HP as possible and give yourself opportunities to get on this guy when he overextends and misplays. So this Darius using his Q there is probably honestly fine. So it's something you guys can do as well, like just using your Q from range to farm if it's too risky. So GP being level 6, Shaco not showing on the map, yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense. But again, I'd much rather him before this point just stay in the brushes and use the brushes. There as well, when the GP goes up for a Q, he did it before twice. Why not just E him there and possibly trade with this guy? Instead, we're just copying, you know, damage because, again, we're just standing in the middle of the lane, nice and open. So, guys, please take these tips, okay, into your games when you're playing Darius. I'm not really sure if it's, like, more of a mental thing for these players in lower elos, but this guy obviously doesn't know, like, Darius's strengths and, like, limits, I guess, and how much damage output you can do and how scary you are to play against in lane. And, yeah, just basic comboing as well is so important, and, like, a little bit of top lane, like, kind of micro, I guess. Using the brushes is really important as well. So take all these tips into your games as Darius, and I'm sure you'll do, well, this guy didn't even do bad, but I'm sure you'll have more success than this bloke. And yeah, I'll see you in the next vlog. Thanks for watching.